Here we are. We're going to learn about how to use Mapmaker Interactive from National Geographic to use layers to learn about a country or a state or any sort of location on Earth. So my country is Malawi. That's what I'm going to be studying and learning about. So I'm going to type in Malawi, and it's going to bring me in really close up on Malawi. The layers actually do not work at this level of zoom, and you really can't see the whole map. So we're going to zoom out until we can see the whole country of Malawi, because we really want to see the whole country. Some of the things I want to learn about are where people live in the country. I want to learn about the weather, the temperature, the climate. So I'm going to go into here where it says add layer. And what this does is it makes an overlay of data on top of my map. So I can see what the temperature is or how many people live in an area. All sorts of data that you can find out. So let's look at weather, because that is one of the first things I want to find out. So we have climate zones, precipitation and rainfall, surface temperature in summer, and surface temperature in winter. If I was going to travel to a country, these are all things I would really want to know, no matter what country I'm going to. Some of these other layers may or may not apply to where I'm looking at. So let's look at one that I know is going to apply to any country you may be looking at. So let's look at surface temperature in summer. So I'm going to click on this to add it to my layers. Then I'm going to close this. I like to really only do one layer at a time because it's just easier to see them that way. So I am looking for the surface air temperature in summer. And this bar here is going to make the layer transparent or non-transparent. And if it doesn't look like it's doing anything, it is possible that you are zoomed in too close. So let's try zooming out and see if then, see now my layers show up. And let's see if they go away if I zoom in. Nope, they don't. So there are, now that is very orange. It's very obviously orange. But orange doesn't tell me anything. I can guess that orange means hot. But if I go over here to legend, legend explains the data on the layers. So if I look here, orange, it looks like it's this 57 to 71 degrees. Okay? And let's just see if this tells us. This data is from 2008, and it's the average temperature over the months of June, July, and August. Okay? So as you can see, if I zoom out on the map, these areas here are hotter. They're in the red zones. But Malawi, it's in orange, so it's 57 to 71. It doesn't seem too bad. Okay. Now if I want to compare that, I can now look at what is the temperature where I live in the summer. Just by scrolling over on the map, zooming out, and coming over here, I can see that actually, looking right here, looking at New Hampshire, it looks like it's actually not too different from our temperatures here necessarily. Might be a little warmer. We might be a little more yellow. But I can then compare the temperatures to other places. Okay? And then when I'm done with that layer, I'm going to find my country again here. There's Malawi. Found Malawi. Okay. Alright. Zooming back in. So when I'm done with that layer, I go back and click on layers again. Okay, so here we are back again with Malawi with no layers. Now this time we're going to look at what some of the other layers we can add are. There we go. So in addition to climate and weather, we've also got categories related to human populations. And the one you want to look for here, most likely, is population density. That's going to show you how many people live in an area. Let me show you what that looks like. And then actually I'm going to grab a couple others while I'm here. And then we can just turn down the transparency so we can see what we're looking at when we're looking at multiple. So here we have categories related to the environment. So if you're interested in, this is a good one here, what covers the earth in different areas. Okay, whether it's grasslands, human settlements, landscapes, desert. This uses data satellites to tell you those things. Okay, so that's a good one. Let's see if there's anything over here that we might be interested in. There's all sorts of things related to renewable energies and alternative energy uses. We're not really getting into that in this project, but they really are rather interesting things to look at. So those are the one we want to look at is the land cover. And then there's also ones about the economy, which is where countries get their money from, how they make money. Do they get a lot of it from agriculture? Do they get a lot of it from technology? And so this map here, gross domestic product, might be able to tell us that. It really depends on the map and the data, what kind of things it's telling us. This one would tell you how many internet users you have out of 100 people, which you're going to have a lot here. You may not have as much in Malawi. I'm not really sure. It's something I could look at. But we're just going to stick with those for now, and you'll be able to look at what layers you want to look at and find out what information you want to find out on the maps related to your countries when you do this yourself. Okay, so I've picked my layers. Okay. And for now, we're going to turn this one down to the transparency 0, and we're going to put the transparency 0 on gross domestic product so we can look at population density. Okay, so as you can see, some areas are lighter and some areas are darker. If I look at the legend, it's going to tell me how I can read that data. So we're looking at population density, so I'm just going to use these little arrows to close what those mean. Okay, and we can see the darker it is, the more people there are. So here you can see there's a lot of people here, which is where the capital is. There's not that many people out here, and there's almost nobody in these little spots here. My guess is part of the reason there's so many people here is because you have this nice lake. Okay, so if you're living in a dry, hot place, living near a lake might be a nice thing. Alright, so if I go back to my layers, and I turn down my population density, and I turn up my gross domestic product, it doesn't really necessarily give us much. Let's see if the legend tells us anything. I'm going to open that tab up. Since it's white, it says there's no data. So this part of the world, we don't have data on that. So that layer isn't very useful to me. So I'm just going to then delete that one. Because if there's no data, it doesn't help me. But let's look at the land cover then. Well, now that's interesting. We have a lot of green with a little bit of yellow in here, and then some areas of pink scattered about. So let's see what our legend tells us. So the light green or that kind of green looks like it's a deciduous needle leaf forest. And then this kind of greenish yellowish is a wooded grassland. And the pink is cropland. So this is where there's some farming going on. These pink areas is where you have a good amount of farming going on. And this dark green is an evergreen broadleaf or evergreen. Yeah, an evergreen broadleaf forest. So it's mostly forest. And then obviously this is water. So that tells us what the ground is like. It's not a desert where it's a lot of sand. There's really not a lot of bare ground so much. But there's a lot of forest actually in Malawi, which also is another reason why there might be more people that choose to live there. So these are just some of the things we can learn using the data maps and using the layers. And so I really encourage you when you're doing your, when you're researching different countries, to use the interactive map maker to see what information you can find out using this layers feature. And I think you'll really find some interesting things about your country. And it's just a really, really cool way to look at the world and look the way different places are set up and how different people live in different places. So I hope you found this useful and helpful, and I hope you enjoy learning more and discovering with the National Geographic Mapmaker Interactive.